Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Brandon, and I am creating this video mainly for my future self, but also just as a reference to anyone who is unsure about how they can develop their stage presence on the drums. And hopefully in the future, I will be able to make videos on stage presence for bass guitar, guitar, and other instruments, singers, things like that, right? But for now, it's basically just for the drums, okay? So, first and foremost, what I'd like to discuss before we go in or dive into the content is what is the difference between stage presence and playing, right? Playing is this, or like, you see, so playing is the audio, the auditory aspect of music. It's basically what you hear, all right? Meanwhile, stage presence, okay? Stage presence is what you can see or what other people can see you doing in music, right? So think of the audience as the paying customer, right? Because musicians at the end of the day, that is our job, musicians, music, right? So when someone buys your CD, they are the paying customer. They pay for your product, which is the sound that you are making, right? That is your playing. However, when you get to things such as shows, live gigs, maybe even weddings if you're a session musician, and things like that where it requires live playing or playing to entertain people through more than one sense and not just hearing, that is where stage presence comes into play, right? Now, I want to point out that there are many different situations where stage presence is and isn't appropriate. For example, if you're in the studio, you definitely want to focus more on getting the notes down and sounding good and tight before you start rocking out and headbanging, right? And keeping that in mind as well, I feel like it's more acceptable to make a mistake playing live because you are having a good time than playing in the studio, okay? So yeah, let's move right into it then, okay? So like I said, stage presence is very important, but there is a time and place for it. When you've located that time and place, which is normally at like a band's live gig or something like that, that's when the fun starts happening, okay? Now, rule number one, out of everything so far, rule number one is that you have to nail the beat or the groove or the song or whatever before you start working on your performance, all right? So that's it. Rule number one, skill over performance. Because I would rather go listen to a drummer who knows his stuff than a drummer who can smile but can't play any day, right? So let's move on. Many people are very unsure where to start with stage presence. They say, oh, well, I feel like I'm following a method by method type instruction thing if I try and take someone else's advice on it, and so I just don't do it because it doesn't feel too comfortable to me. And I have to admit that, for me, going and asking other people, hey, what do you do to be more entertaining live? The answer is not usually what you're looking for, right? So what I started doing was I started going on YouTube and finding videos of all my favorite bands and all my favorite drummers and seeing what they did live and how did they enjoy themselves, because that's why we're all musicians, because we enjoy ourselves, right? And what I saw was that they weren't going nuts on every song. They weren't, you know, losing their minds every song with their stage presence. It was certain specific moments when they were really, really enjoying themselves. Okay? So, rule number one so far, just to summarize. Rule number one, know the song or the beat before you try and perform. And rule number two, enjoy yourself, right? And side note for rule number two, you don't have to do that all the time, actually. Okay? So let's get into the actual matter now after that very long introduction, right? The way I see it, and again, it's different for everyone, but I have a system of working out, sort of how much stage presence I can inject into a song or a show. And that's based on the difficulty of what I'm playing, right? So I know that there are tons of exceptions and heaps of other, in between type things. But for me, I divide every song I've ever played into three categories: easy, medium, and difficult, or hard, or whatever you want to call it, right? And for me, the more difficult it gets, to play the song, I mean, then the more difficult it is, obviously, to perform on stage. But there are ways around that. So let's start with something easy, right? Back in Black, AC/DC, or like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Green Day, you know. Da, 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 ba, da, da, dun, dun, ba, dun. As you can see, right now, I'm just playing a straight 8/8 groove, you know? Which it's not hard at all. If you are playing a groove like this and you can't just talk freely, maybe you should, you know, with the greatest respect, maybe you should go practice a little bit and then come back, right? But anyway, yeah, so that for me is a very easy groove. And because it's an easy groove, it means that it takes up less of my brain capacity to play that groove or that beat. And because less of my brain capacity is taken up, I am more free to start, you know, spinning my stick and, you know, going crazy and things like that, okay? And it's also a great place to start with the number one thing for entertaining people on stage, and that is to simply smile. I cannot tell you how much smiling has helped me playing live, right? So here is exhibit A of what a boring drummer looks like to me anyway. But so you're playing live. I know, right? It's killing me too, right? Now let's play that exact same beat. Right? Now keep in mind that it may not be perfect, but again, nothing ever is perfect, right? Right? So you could see in the first one, I had a very bland expression on my face. It didn't look like I was enjoying myself at all. And, you know, my body language was just very rigid, like almost as if I was nervous or as if I didn't want to be there, right? But in the second part that you saw me play, which was the exact same beat, you could see I was moving around a lot more. My back is arching, which means, you know, moving up and down, bouncing, swaying with the music, things like that. Did a few like spins and catches and things like that, which is good because you know, aside from all that, I was smiling. So you could see, or maybe not smiling, I have a very weird drumming face, but the point was you could see I was having more of a good time in Exhibit 2 than with the first thing you saw, right? And so that's really my whole point thus far, is that if you are having a good time and if you're really passionate about what you do, it's so much easier to just share that with everyone around you when you play live. And that's what really your goal when you play live. The goal of stage presence is not only for you to have a good time, but for the good time you're having to reflect onto everyone else. Because like I said, if you're enjoying yourself, then the audience, the paying customer, will begin to enjoy themselves slowly too. It's like customer satisfaction, basically, right? Now moving on. By now, you know, the question must have burned in your mind 1,000 times. Yes, but Brandon, what do I do when I get to more difficult things, right? So the beat that I just played for you guys was easy. It was a basic 8/8, you know? Now let's try something that I find to be, say, medium difficulty. Now, my whole life I've been playing, my whole drumming career's life, I've been playing punk rock, you know, sort of faster stuff like that. So I've been mainly focusing on my hand speed and like Travis Barker style fills, things like that. What I've just started doing now is learning how to play metal on the double bass. And so I find this beat, even though it should be considered easy, I personally find it kind of medium-ish. And like I said, it's different for everyone, guys, don't judge. So here is like one of the first beats that you learn for metal, right? It's also an 8/8, but you're playing the 8 with the double bass, right? So it's... right? Okay, I actually didn't intend that fill there, but it sounded really cool. Anyway, so like I said, that's something that I find medium-ish to play. It's a little bit harder, but I can still manage it, right? So with beats like this, what I would really recommend that you do is go practice them as much as you can, which most people are doing anyway, let's be honest here. So you practice it as much as you can, get it sounding solid, not to the point where you say, okay, now it's easy, because that defeats the purpose of this video, but to the point where you where it takes up a little bit less brain power, but not enough. Not enough to make a difference, right? So it's still medium for you to play. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, what is the structure of what I'm playing here? You know, are there any repeat bars in it, things like that, or any fills that aren't so complicated that I can maybe show off on? Because that's also the trick with showing off. If you spend the entire gig going like, you know, it's going to lose its effect, because you may be enjoying yourself 100% of the time, but if you carry on shoving that in people's faces, their enjoyment's going to go down. So it's about finding the right moment, okay? So I digress, back to this thing, okay? So like I said, right, there was that fill that I did, right? So for that, you could go like, you know, something like that. And you could see there, even then a little bit, I was struggling. So exercise this with caution. And again, I'm not going to go into a whole lesson on, you know, different types of stick tricks and spins and twirls. There's tons of tutorials out there for that. But my goal with this video is to help my future self and anyone else who's struggling to sort of find when and where and how to find the good moments to show off as a drummer, right? So far, what have we got? We've got being able to smile. We've got doing little, you know, spins, twirls, and flips like that. And we've learned so far that being able to identify the right moment as to when to show off is very, very important. Because if you show off with the wrong part and drop your stick, that's kind of a problem, right? Now, moving on to something that I find super, super hard. And again, I'm going to play something that I found hard, but now is kind of easy. But okay, so let's just say we're grooving in, geez, 7/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? So that's something, okay, look, it's not too hard for me now, but I know for a lot of beginners and intermediate people, 7/8 and other time signatures like that are kind of hard, right? So for something like that, we all know that sometimes even breathing becomes a difficulty when you're focusing on a really, really hectic or intense beat, right? So if you're at that kind of level where you're thinking, hold on, I can barely breathe in this song, how do I, you know, show off with this? And my answer to that, there are two answers to that. The first being, well, you don't. Like I said, the whole trick with stage presence is being able to find when and where it is most appropriate to perform, to enjoy yourself a little bit more and to show off, right? And if the beat you are playing is truly that hard that you need all of your focus to play it, don't bother showing off, right? Because the chances are that 99% of the rest of the show you're playing is not going to be like that. Or if it is, you're probably Neil Peart and hi, I'm a big fan, right? So anyway, the other answer, which I completely forgot to mention, by the way, is once again to look for the appropriate parts and once again to practice it a lot, right? If you're short on time and you're watching this video, I really don't recommend trying this out at the next show if it's like tomorrow. But if you've got 2 weeks to kill, go ahead, you know? You know? And again, the range of tricks that I'm doing here is very limited, just to keep it simple for the beginners, you know. But I mean, I know a lot of people who are bringing like, you know, cadet drumming style tricks into their playing, which is really cool. So like I said, I mean, anyone can go look up a stick trick video on the internet, but it's just really knowing when and where is appropriate to do these things, okay? And I've been saying that for the whole video, so now we get to the real meat of this thing, okay? First, I just want to summarize. So far, we've gone and we've looked at the levels of difficulty of playing, which again, doesn't have to apply to you. It's just what works for the person and it works for me, right? And based on that, we've seen, okay, well, if we ourselves understand how difficult a song is for us to play, then we can understand based on that when and where it is appropriate to try and find a spot to show off. Because once again, I'm far more likely to show off playing Back in Black than I am playing, I don't know, what's his name, you know, so I'm way more likely to show off playing Back in Black than I am to show off playing Mike Portnoy's song, you know, like Panic Attack or something like that, okay? And the reason being because the level of difficulty in the one, Back in Black that is not so high, right? So The question then really just boils down to, okay, well, I know how to perform, Brandon, because I can do stick tricks, I can headbang, I can smile, I can do the whole 9 yards. How do I actually identify this? And once again, it just goes back to the levels of difficulty, right? So yeah, that's basically the end of the video, guys. The whole point that I'm trying to make here is that if you know your own playing really well, and this can come through, you know, just studying your playing a little bit more or through years of experience, it really doesn't matter. Then from there, you will know how, where, and when to enjoy yourself. So yeah, take care.